Hello and welcome to Pre-Sales Pathways, the podcast that showcases highly successful pre-sales professionals and the career paths that they've taken. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by the brilliant Andrew Nikolic. Andrew currently works as a distinguished solutions engineer at Slack, where he's been for almost 10 years. And before that, he spent a similar amount of time at Experian in a combination of pre and post-sales roles. So over the next 30 minutes or so, we're going to hear a bit about Andrew's background and how he got into pre-sales. He's going to tell us about his role as a distinguished SE and what that involves. And then last but certainly not least, he's going to share with us some tips and tricks that have led to his career success so far. So that's enough for me. First of all, Andrew, thanks so much for joining us on the podcast today. And it'd be great to get a quick intro from you.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Thanks for having me on the show. So Andrew, as you mentioned, I'm a distinguished solution engineer at Slack, and coming up to almost 10 years soon, which is pretty amazing to think back on. But I've been in the software industry for quite some time, many different roles, but definitely primarily spent a lot of time in solution engineering. So looking forward to the conversation today.
Brilliant. And on that topic, how is it that you got into the world of pre-sales and solutions engineering in the first place?
Yeah, well, I think I found myself in solution engineering by accident. And this is actually something I hear from other SEs out there where I didn't actually even know the role existed. And I can think back to studying computer science at university, and I was probably halfway into the degree where I realized actually probably can't see myself being a full-time software engineer. Wanted to do something else, but didn't know what. And at that time had no idea about solution engineering. But I left university. I found myself joining a software company. So that was Experian, and kind of joined as a tech person, really. So I was primarily doing anything from answering support tickets to fixing a printer in the office, doing a bit of product training for customers as well. So actually going out on site and teaching them how to use the software. And how I stumbled across solution engineering or even pre-sales as a concept was in our office. We sat next to sales reps, and there was a day where someone just asked me, "Hey, can you come along to this customer meeting? Because I know that you know the product." And that's what I did, and had no idea really what to expect, but really enjoyed it. I think I firstly loved meeting with customers. That was great, but also got exposure to the excitement of a sales cycle. And so that's how I came across it. And was really fortunate at that company that they really supported that and ended up progressively changing my role into more of a dedicated pre-sales resource.
Nice. And so fast forward to your role today. You're currently a distinguished solutions engineer at Slack. I guess that title could mean different things to different people. For people who haven't maybe come across it before or haven't come across it at Slack specifically, like how would you explain it to someone that hasn't heard of it before?
So, I mean, at Slack and Salesforce, we have this concept of an account SE, and that's what most people think of as a traditional solution engineer, where you're assigned to opportunities and work those particular deals. In my role as a distinguished SE, I am really in the middle of a SE that has deep domain expertise, but also can operate at that more strategic level across both opportunities, but also helping scale and enable the business as well. So what that means is I'd still work across some deals today, but I then get also pulled in as, I guess, an overlay resource where I partner with the account team and the solution engineers and really join those deals to provide that deeper technical expertise. And this could be across things like AI, security, platform integration, and more of those larger complex deals is where I can often get brought into as well. But a big part of it also in the role is being able to help share that knowledge and enable the rest of the business. And that's actually changed a little bit over the years. I would say that actually in the earlier days when we were building out the solution engineering team, I was more directly involved in actually onboarding and enabling those SEs.
Yep.
Now that we have a lot more of a mature team, well established, more moving into that thought leadership space, and this is more organization global wide, where, and again, especially over the last couple of years, there's so much now to learn with how the industry's headed with AI and technology that I'm having to learn it myself. And so I'm taking those personal learnings and then sharing that across the business. And that takes many different forms, from assets and just sharing my thoughts. But that's definitely a big part of the role, is how do we kind of up level everyone.
Yeah. So going beyond, I guess, working just individual cycles yourself, you're looking at how you can scale the success of the organization as a whole. And maybe that started in the form of enablement. It's shifted, it's changed. It's more like thought leadership now, but fundamentally a large part of the role is going beyond just your individual contribution and bringing up the team, as you mentioned.
Definitely. It's definitely multifaceted. There's a lot of variety in the role. But I think, for those that aren't familiar with that role as a distinguished SC, it is really about how you can scale your expertise, your knowledge, and make more of a organization-wide impact.
Yep.
And so it can take many different forms, but certainly there's some of the key areas.
Yeah, makes sense. So let's get into some of the, I guess, day-to-day activities. And I'm sure like every day doesn't look exactly the same, but would love to explore, like, what does a typical day look like for you? What are some of the specific things you're getting involved in?
Yeah, I spend a lot of my time meeting customers. That's obviously a big part of a role as a solution engineer. It's no different for me as well. Like, definitely spending a lot of time understanding customer problems, building and helping craft demos as well. I would say probably the more interesting thing has been, in the last couple of years, really spending a lot of time understanding how we can take some of the latest technologies around AI and apply that to business problems. Like, at the moment, I think everyone's trying to figure that out. And so we can really play more of an active role in help educate customers, and provide more of that consultation around how they can leverage some of this technology. And I think that's where I've seen my role probably shift a little bit more in the last couple of years, is more on that consulting side and having to be at the forefront of everything that's happening. Because, meeting with customers right now, again, everyone's trying to figure out how they can get value and apply these technologies. And so there's really been a good opportunity to be that point of contact on all of those topics. So from my day to day, it's definitely customers, a lot of learning, and so definitely spending a lot of time digging deep into that. And a big aspect that I've not previously done in other years, but certainly in the last year and a half has been a big aspect of the role, is around building tooling for the teams as well. So that's been really exciting and enjoying that. And specifically, this is all around tools that we can build demos at scale. So obviously something that all SEs do day in, day out. How do we make that easier? How do we take a lot of the manual lift around building demos? And so part of my role has kind of morphed now into building and owning that tooling, and continue innovating on that as well. So yeah, lots of different things there, but yeah, definitely makes it exciting being able to work on all these different type of projects, but definitely still customer facing, which is something I enjoy.
Yeah, on the tooling side, I think when you're responsible for scaling the success of the org generally, there's like so many different directions you could potentially take that.
Yeah.
What led you to the demo tooling side of things? Like, how did you land on that as a project? What was there in place already? Yeah, talk us through a bit of the thinking there.
For sure. I still remember it. It was a Friday afternoon. It was a application and tool that I actually co-built with a colleague of mine, and we had a late Friday conversation where we said, well, could we actually solve for this problem? We're looking to really scratch our own itch, because one of the biggest things with Slack specifically is you need a lot of content in the platform in order to demo that. And especially with all the new AI capabilities, the content's even more important. And that was traditionally very manual. You're typing out content, you're copying, pasting content from other tools into Slack. So we thought, how can we solve for this? So it started with a Friday afternoon conversation. I remember that weekend working on it and prototyping it. And on Monday, we got together and we had something very, very basic, but we had a rough prototype working. And we thought, actually, this is good. We might, other SEs probably going to get value out of it, but even if they don't, we'll definitely use it. So it was really a tool we built for ourselves. And we went from that basic idea through to a fully working prototype in probably 3 weeks. So it was very quick.
Yeah.
And we decided we'll just get it out to the team. Let's get some feedback. Let's see what people think about it. And if there's any value in it, great, we'll keep building on it. And sure enough, it was well received. And we've just continually iterated, keep updating it based on user feedback. But to answer your question, it really just started as a problem that we wanted to solve for ourselves. And so we took the mindset of let's build it, let's use it day to day, and we'll just sort of see how it goes. So we definitely got it out pretty quick to users, I would say, was the other learning there as well. Like let's test the waters. Let's see if this actually has some value for us to continue to invest time in it. And kind of the rest is history on that. So that was about 1.5 years ago, and it's definitely evolved and it changed a lot since then. But yeah, we didn't start out by thinking, oh, what is a project we can work on? It definitely wasn't that mindset. It was, we had this challenge day to day that we wanted to make our lives a little bit easier. So that's how that came about.
Yeah, and that's definitely a common thread in a lot of the conversations I've been having around AI. Is just the quickest way to learn is start building with it rather than just reading about it, right?
For sure, definitely.
Cool. And the other thing I wanted to come back to when you were mentioning about your sort of role being customer facing and thought leadership, and like talk us through what the engagement model there looks like how would account teams pull you in, and what are the sorts of engagements you would have with customers?
Yeah, definitely. So at the moment, there's really 2 ways that I'm involved in opportunities. I do have alignments to account executives. And so these are account executives that I work with day in, day out. I'm usually involved relatively early in the sales cycle. And the idea is there that we want to get early discovery as quick as possible. And I think that's definitely been important to have that partnership with the account executive early and make sure, you're in there early, understanding the customer needs and helping define that solution very early on. Especially for those sales cycles that take several months, if not a year. It is important to have that customer context. So that's really one. The second is a little bit more ad hoc, Chris. So it can be complex deals or strategic deals that I get pulled into because management identify it as something critical that I need to work on. And so those are sort of put on my radar, and I'll sync up with the account team then to figure out what the strategy is on the account. Once I'm in those accounts, that's where it is really case by case. So in some cases, I'm coming in for something very specific, like it could be, a very detailed security conversation that, that is a key milestone in the deal, and we need some expertise to help drive that. And because of my experience over almost 10 years working with regulated organizations and customers, I can bring that value to the deal. In other cases, it's a little bit divide and conquer. So I'll work closely with the SE, and we will kind of divide, whether it be discovery sessions, whether it be co-building a demo together. It really depends on what the opportunity requires there. So yeah, we'll really come together and figure out a game plan.
Yeah, makes sense. I would love to hear maybe a couple of things that you really enjoy about the role, and is there anything that you would rather drop?
Yeah, I mentioned this a couple of times throughout my description, but there is a lot of variety in the role, and what I really love about it is the continual learning. I think that's what's really fantastic, is you do get to learn new technology all the time. And that, honestly, that's like a big part of what got me into technology full stop, and why I even got into computer science was just that curiosity of wanting to learn, and the excitement of technology and learning. All of that was what drew me in initially, and something definitely now can do part of my role. Definitely another aspect is I'm not specialized in a certain industry or segment either. So I think that's maybe unique to other organizations, where I get to work across financial services one day, and then the next day I might be talking to a retailer and getting to understand how different businesses operate. I really enjoy that aspect of it. I guess what I don't like, I don't know if I've got a like interesting or unique answer here, but I don't think many SEs out there like the admin side of things, having to do all of that. But honestly, there's nothing really that stands out that I don't like enjoy about the role. I think there's a reason I've been in solution engineering for as long as I have, and I think as long as I have that variety and continually learning, it's definitely going to be something I'll continue to be interested in.
Yeah, cool. Which is a great segue into, I guess, looking back across the whole arc of your career, what would be, like a couple of habits or a mindset maybe that you've attributed to your success so far?
Yeah, I think I think definitely. Well, I'll take a step back. One of the biggest challenges that I found early in my career, certainly joining Slack, is having HQ over in San Francisco. We're in a different time zone. Proximity to HQ is obviously very far away, and you do have this sense of operating in isolation. And so I think a habit or a mindset that's been really beneficial to me is building those relationships, and making a concerted effort to do that. Because if I think back to the early days and when we're setting up the business here in Australia, yes, we had a small footprint of obviously Slack users and customers through organic growth, but of course we're trying to break into the enterprise, but we didn't have everything set up as a business. We didn't have all the playbooks, we didn't have all the infrastructure here. And so the only way to really make an impact on that is via having HQ on board to invest and actually provide customers what we need. So I was in the front line working with customers, had that feedback, but they don't necessarily know who I am. And to really get buy-in, what was a good strategy and mindset was making sure I built relationships with the key stakeholders in HQ. And the way I did that was it's difficult, I will say. Absolutely, it's not an easy thing to do. But any opportunity that I had when I was over in the US and HQ, I made an effort to go and meet people. This was both when I was going through induction, whether it's a company event or a sales kickoff. Anytime I was in region there, I would go and I would meet as many people as I can. And this doesn't always have to be some set agenda. It could be just a coffee catch up. But building those personal relationships honestly made a huge difference. So that's number one, like just making sure you're well connected into HQ. Number two is like we at the time, and I'll use a specific example here, trying to break into enterprises here, a lot of financial services organizations in Australia, things like data residency was incredibly important. And we didn't have any of that initially when we came to market. And so one of the things that I really learned, being someone that played a role in bringing that to region, was making sure you're communicating these things as much as possible. So yes, we need to do things like log product gaps for product management to say, hey, this customer requires local data residency. But sometimes that's not enough, was my learning. You need to make sure leadership are aware of this, because they're obviously going to have other connections in throughout the business that can really make sure this is put on the radar. And so just that continual communication of the voice of the customer was definitely something that is important. And I would say was really helped in the early success of how I could make an impact to the business in those early years.
Yeah. I mean, I can definitely relate to that being UK based, I think I left it way too late. I was not as proactive as you. I left it way too late, I think, to build direct relationships with like product management in particular. It was only really late in my career at Slack that I built direct relationships. And like you said, you can put as many tickets in the system as you like, but having that relationship with someone makes such a big difference.
Definitely. And like, it is difficult. Like I've said at the beginning there, it is not something that you can just do overnight. I think it's just the mindset of continually having it front of mind. So when opportunities do present itself, you can take advantage of that. So, but it does make a difference. Like, obviously when people know you and then you reach out for requests, if they've met you in person or they've had a conversation with you, that is obviously going to be a very different way that's received. And yeah, it's an ongoing thing that you have to continually work at.
Yeah. And interestingly, I know a lot of people that I speak to are sort of interested in a founding SE role, but it sounds like being the first in region is quite a bit like that. Even if you're not necessarily the first SE in the organization as a whole, it sounds like you need to be, particularly with such a big time zone difference, pretty independent.
For sure. I would even say right now, there's still elements of that which are true, where, Slack headquarters is still in San Francisco. And so we don't have someone locally that I can walk over to and ask a question of, or bring them into an opportunity or a deal. So I think that's just the nature of, well, for me, certainly working here in Australia is just the nature of the business. So there's, definitely elements of that which is still true right now.
Yeah. Andrew, I'd love to hear a challenge that you've had in your career and what you took away from that.
A challenge, yeah. A challenge and an opportunity just in my career in general. What are you looking for there?
Yeah, like maybe something that didn't pan out exactly as you expected, and what did you learn from that? How did you pivot from that?
Yeah, I think the thing that comes to mind for me is in my career, I actually moved out of an individual contributor role into management. And that's probably something that I'd love to talk a little bit more about. That was, well, when I was early in my career, one of the things that I thought, and I think this is fairly common across other SEs that they may think similar to this as well, is when you're, developing your career and trying to, move up the ranks, so to speak, it can feel like the natural next step or progression is to move into people leadership and management. And I definitely felt that. And at Experian, I was very fortunate that I was given the opportunity to do that relatively early in my career. And I will just say that it was something I don't regret, trying out the management thing. I think I learned a lot from it. I was really lucky that I had great leaders and mentors during that time to guide me through that period. And I look back at it fondly for sure. But I do recall there being a time later on, a few years into that, where I did question whether I could see myself in this long term. And the main reasons were I was missing the customer facing aspect. I think naturally you don't get to do that as much. So that was definitely one driver. The other was I did feel like I had more runway or more to give around honing my craft around being a solution engineer, learning technology. Learning technology is definitely what motivates me, what I'm passionate about. Not getting the ability to do that as much was definitely something that I wanted to get back into. The challenge that I had, though, was, and I don't know if this is an external perception or it's just a perception I created within myself, but it did feel like if I was to move back into an IC role, it's almost like taking a step backwards in my career. Mm-hmm. And so I had to navigate that. And the way I ended up navigating this was, look, honestly, a lot of it was timing. What ended up happening at Experian was an opportunity presented itself where they were actually, through an acquisition, bringing a new product to market, and they were looking to build out a new team. Almost consider it like a startup environment within a larger organization. And so there was an opportunity to get back into an IC role as the founding SE within that part of the business. It was going to be a small team. And I really jumped at that opportunity because whilst it was moving back into an IC role, it was definitely a new set of challenges that I hadn't done before, which again, moving from a part of the business which was operating like a well-oiled machine to a scrappy startup environment was really appealing to me. And I thought I can gain a lot of experience by doing this. And so I did that for a couple of years, and that actually was the perfect then stepping stone to then helping build the Slack business and moving into a similar role and taking those learnings and applying that to Slack.
Yeah, I think, what probably a lot of people don't appreciate, particularly earlier in their career, is that, now you're in still an IC role, but a lot of your work is about scaling the impact of the org. It's going beyond just the deal work. And so you can, for people who are more, I guess, like systems minded or interested in processes or building things that are reusable, you can still do that work as an IC. You don't have to go into people management to do that.
Definitely. I think, my learning is that people management and leadership often are considered the same thing, but you can still provide leadership in an IC role. And I think that's definitely something that I've learned over the years, that you can still make an impact, whether it be through mentoring, helping scale the team, that enablement piece, which we've touched on a couple of times as well. There's leadership aspects that come along with that as well. And actually, when I think back to my time in management, that's probably what I enjoyed the most, was helping develop others. But you don't need to be a people manager to do that necessarily. So, if that's something I would say as an SE that you're interested in, you can still make an impact across the business.
Yeah. And on the topic of mentoring, what would be one piece of advice you would give to SEs earlier on in their career?
I would say definitely stay curious. I think the SEs that I've seen, and definitely this is a mindset that's helped me, but when I look at some of the best SEs that I work with and seen out over my many years, the ones that are curious and continually look to get better every day is the best thing you can do early in your career. And so that can take many different forms, but certainly looking to hone that craft continually, get a little bit better every day, is something that I recommend to all SEs as they're onboarding to the organization. And yeah, that would be really my number one tip, I think.
Yeah. And so the curiosity goes beyond, it's not just the technology, because that's what a lot of people, I think, associate it with, but it's continuously improving, honing the craft generally.
Yeah, and I think like every SE, it's such a varied role in the terms of the types of SEs that are out there. Some are more technical, some are more business focused. And so there's always an opportunity for different areas and skill sets for everyone to develop. So if maybe you are very comfortable in the technical skill set, well, hone and develop the business acumen side of things. But on the reverse, if you are a little bit more comfortable with the business side, definitely getting more exposure to some of the technical domains and areas to be able to talk about is an area to get better at. And I think actually now more than ever, with the way the industry's heading, the new technology that's out there, that's probably something that everyone does need to do is get a little bit more comfortable and familiar with the technical side of things. But that's going to be different for everybody depending on their skill sets and already what they're quite good at.
Yeah, it's great advice. So what's next for you, Andrew?
Yeah, well, to be honest, I've never in my career had a concrete path of where I want to take my career in the next 1 or 2 years or even beyond. There's never really been that set roadmap. I've always had the mindset of like, just seize the opportunity as they present themselves. I think now in particular, like who knows where the industry is going to be in 6 months' time, let alone longer than that. So I'm definitely in learning mode right now.
Yeah.
And really focusing my attention on really getting as proficient as possible, and understanding how we can apply these new technologies to business problems, and kind of see where it goes from there. I think it is a very exciting time to be in solution engineering, and honestly, probably one of the most exciting times with the innovation that's happening and the transformation that's going across the industry right now. So I'm just really getting as deep as possible into all of that. And yeah, we'll go from there and see what happens.
Great. Well, Andrew, it's been a super interesting conversation for me. A couple of the takeaways or highlights. I loved when you were talking about your sort of demo tooling, the demo automation tooling. Just if you see a problem there and you know it's worth solving, just roll up your sleeves. Like, we've got the technology to hand to solve for it now. And also the fact that you don't need to be a line manager to lead. And I think that'll be interesting to a lot of people who maybe want to do some of the things you mentioned, like building tooling, mentoring, scaling impact, but aren't sure if line management's the way to go. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure you won't mind if people are interested in following along. They can follow you on LinkedIn or connect with you on LinkedIn. And yeah, thanks everyone for listening in. We'll have another episode following the same format. And yeah, that's all.
Thanks, Chris. Good to talk to you.